Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's Countryside with Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark. And, well, the trees in the Isle of Man given problems again, particularly for the forestry section. And I catch up with the Minister for Defa, Geoffrey Boot, to see what they can do about this, isn't it?
Yeah, they've been monitoring the trees fairly hard over the last few years, and we thought things were getting on top of things, but it seems to have raised its ugly head again, unfortunately.
It does. I went along to Smale, catch up with the latest news from mixed farmer David Brew, who was telling me about how things were, obviously with his sheep on the farm there and his crops, the milling wheat, and particularly a new venture that he's into, blue lupins, which I found out more about, which I got put straight that they weren't actually flowers he was growing like in a nursery. So we'll be hearing that in full with David. Also, I went to the very popular annual Sulby Horticultural Society show. I spoke to some of the people there, and it was lovely. A lot of produce that was on exhibition there as well. And
carrying on from the horticultural shows, we've just had the Southern District show when I caught up with Andrew Lees to see how successful the Defa tent was at that show, and how much wonderful produce there is getting displayed at these shows for everyone to try and to buy. But also hearing about the food awards, the taste awards that have been given to some of these producers, it really spurring them on, and I look forward to the Royal Manx as well.
Indeed. So here is this week's Countryside.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, we're right in the middle of the Isle of Man Agricultural Society shows. We've had the Southern, and we're looking forward to the Royal Manx as well. And a busy time for lots of people who are involved in it, isn't there, Kerry?
That's right. It's not just the exhibitors and the livestock producers, it's also the food businesses, and also Defa. They're taking part by having the big food tent there. And I went along to speak to Andrew Lees to see if it's been a success this year. How is the provenance label working out so far?
Absolutely brilliantly. Over time, and it's now a couple of months into it, we've sort of got 17 businesses that have signed up to it. There's over 250 products that we've looked at and decided whether they are the product of and made in of the Isle of Man. And it's growing slowly, which is what we wanted it to do. It's growing in such a way that we can manage it, and we can challenge where we need to challenge, but also support where we want to support. So yeah, it's great. I mean, in terms of what's covered in the provenance label, you've got veg, you've got sort of meat, eggs, ice cream, and you can see some of them coming around are actually actively using the labels all the way through. So even if you take something like such as ice cream, one of the ice cream producers has now plastered it all over the van. It's brilliant. Never thought it went that way.
But it gives that reassurance to the consumer. Have you had good feedback from those people?
Yes, we've had some feedback in terms of where people now can start to understand if the product's Manx and if it's made in, so that there's more of an understanding of what we are actually producing on the island. And I think over time it's getting more and more. And we're getting some great traction in terms of journalists off islands wanting to talk about the provenance label, which never in a million years we'd thought that would happen, but it's great. It's been covered in all sorts of the UK press, but no, it's going really, really well. It's probably one of the best things we've done. Glad it's launched.
But also, when we were at the Southern District show there last week, the Defa tent was full of foodies. I couldn't get in for love nor money. It was an absolute fabulous turnout, but the produce that was on display was 100% Manx.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Defa tent in the Southern show was the biggest one we've done. We thought it was too big, but it felt really well. And you had people there that were, you had Closeleys, Ballakelly, Applehorn, Finneys, and Creamies to go on, but it was all Manx produce. Everybody who comes into the Defa tent falls within the Food Matters strategy. That they've got to support local, and that's the whole point behind the Food Matters strategy. If it's local, we will support you 100%, and it's there to ensure that from the farmers and the fishermen who are growing or catching the stuff, they can see the return back to them.
And that's important. That's essential for generations to come as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's more and more people coming into looking at sort of food businesses, and it is great to see people asking for it. I mean, even when you can see some of the queues when I was looking around at the Southern Show, you can see certain queues at some of the at lunchtimes, delibery at the businesses they knew they were Manx, and it was great to see.
But these people are getting awarded. They've just had the Great Taste Awards. You've also got the Food and Farming Awards coming up at the Royal Manx as well. They are great recognition, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, the Great Taste Awards, which we got this week, it was like 56 awards. We were thinking we'll get a couple more, just get a couple more. We doubled it. And, when you look at it per head of capita, we're ahead of every other region from Ireland, Northern Ireland, the UK in terms of what we've done. And 3 businesses winning 3 stars. Alaman Creamery, Fudge winning those 3 stars, and Berries in terms of the toffee pudding. Brilliant. And I think it shows it's the quality of them. Yeah. And then we take something like Ballykelly. They're a year old. They've suddenly won 15 awards. That's fantastic.
And we're very fortunate that we have the Food and Drink Festival coming up, but just afterwards we have a free brand and packaging workshop. Now this will certainly help people with ideas of selling their own produce.
Absolutely. I mean, it was last run in 2014, and when we were looking as part of the Food Matter strategy and looking in terms of how people should actually move forward, what we want to do is actually provide a free workshop for food businesses to actually say this is what your packaging should look like. If you're walking into a supermarket, there's 15,000 products there. A consumer's probably looking at your product for 8 seconds to decide yes or no. So that's the crucial thing. And if we have something that they recognise is great quality, that has the provenance, and provenance is getting more and more in terms of what people are wanting, then actually that product will have a chance of surviving the first 8 to 12 weeks when new products are launched. So the whole thing about the branding workshop is to give the businesses the confidence and the understanding what they should be looking at in terms of selling their products.
And we're very fortunate that we have Peter Greenlees running this course.
Absolutely. I mean, he's the creative director and founder of DNA Brand Design. He's moving back to the island with his family, and it's great. I mean, he's worked with such brands as Cadbury, Asda, Bird's Eye and Walls, but he's also now part of the Agricultural Marketing Society. So, he's using his experience to help and support both the food businesses, but also the agricultural sector as a whole. But
we can get an awful lot from this, his knowledge, his wealth of knowledge. It's so broad, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, he covers sort of all sort of areas. If you're talking about sort of Cadbury's, you talk about Asda, he covers a multitude of sins, but actually he understands what the consumers are absolutely looking at and what the consumer needs to see for them to pick up that product. So
when will this be on, and how will people get in touch with you to join this course?
So it's on the 28th of September at 6 p.m. at St John's in the training room. It is free, and basically if you contact us through the food@gov.im email, then we'll get back to you.
And do you have to be an established business to go to this? Can it be you're just playing with ideas and you can come along?
Ideally, it is for food businesses. However, we won't sort of exclude anybody if they're coming through ideas. I think it is already very, very popular, so we may end up having a waiting list, but ideally it is for sort of the food businesses who are there. But no, if you've got an idea, still email us. The support and help is there. If you're starting up a new business, the whole thing is we will try and support you as much as possible, either via DEFA or via my colleagues in DED as well.
You've already had a busy year, Andrew, but is there anything else afoot coming up in the rest of the year to come?
I think there's quite a few things to come through in the next year. The projects are coming to the end in terms of what we're doing, so I think over time you'll see new things occurring. I'd love to say this is what we're doing now, but actually we've got plans for the next 6 to 12 months. We've got the Food Festival, the 9th one. We've now got the 10th one next year. I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. So we're already beginning to plan for that one. We know for the Food Festival, we are fully booked. We now have a waiting list. We've never had a waiting list of people trying to get in. It's there. It's 2 days. We were trying new things as well, but it is all around sort of supporting, the primary sectors, the agriculture and fisheries, and supporting the food businesses.
That was Andrew Lees, the Food Business Development Manager from DEFA.
Yes, good that they're encouraging some variation in it, isn't there? And lots of people wanting to get their Manx produce forward, and of course the provenance label as well. A good, hotly contested subject there. But it's good to see, and a lot of people have been welcome on this, haven't they? Let's talk about trees, because we've had trouble with the Isle of Man forests in the past with various diseases affecting them, particularly the larch lately. But one that's come to the forefront of it is affecting the ash trees on the island. And I spoke to the DEFA Minister, Geoffrey Boot, to find out what all this is about.
Sadly, yes, we now have confirmed cases of ash dieback, which adds to the list. We've got Dutch elm disease and Phytophthora. Phytophthora, we've cleared most of the infected larch, although there are some trees still left. It would be nice if some of those survived. Dutch elm disease is progressive, and we've been tackling that head on. whereas the ash dieback, unfortunately, there's nothing that we can really do to stop it.
It's a little bit different than the other diseases, isn't it? Where, when it's over, it's sort of over. Is that fair to say?
Well, yes. I think in the UK originally they thought they may be able to contain it, but the reality is it's a fungal disease that's spread by spores, and once a tree is infected, the lesions on the leaves spread the spores and it's spread by the wind. So if the tree is dead or dying, when it dies, it doesn't pose a continuing risk, and in fact the advice from the UK is that the trees are left or felled where they're a problem, where they could cause problems for pedestrian traffic or roads, but they do form quite a useful biodiverse habitat for anything from woodpeckers to other insects.
It's surprising the number of ash trees that's on the island too, isn't it?
It is indeed. When I first heard that we got confirmed ash dieback, I looked into this and I asked the department to let me know how many trees we did have that were ash trees. And in fact, if you look at the hedgerows, and today I was looking at the hedgerows down the Balamoda Strait, 25% or more of the trees are ashes. So It's going to cause a problem, especially if they all die. Although that's not actually necessarily the case, because some of the older trees may be resistant and some may survive it, or may be naturally resistant even in the younger version.
So is there a plan of attack that you can do, or is it just really a waiting game and clearing up?
It's a waiting game. If you have an infected tree in your garden, we want to know about it. We want to know where they are. It would be nice to be able to monitor the spread. You can snap it and send it to DEFRA website. If you look on there will be a device, or internet device, so that people can take a picture and send it to us for identification. If it's in a garden, you can take the tree down. Alternatively, you can clear the leaf debris up, particularly around the tree, and burn that or compost it to stop it spreading the spores. But in general terms, it will be a matter of just maintaining dangerous trees, ones that could cause problems, and taking them out where aesthetically they're not good for the environment.
Is it easy to spot the ones that have it?
Yes and no, it depends. And that's why we like people to take pictures and send them to the department, because forestry will then identify it. But if you see the crown of a tree doing poorly, or the leaves yellowing, and the tree generally looking as if it's stressed when it was a fairly healthy tree previously, then that is a sure sign that something's going wrong with the tree, and it may be ash dieback. It isn't always. There are other things that, drought stress, overwater stress, and insect infestations, but it's worth having it checked out.
It's great that the department are getting the public involved in these things, aren't they? I mean, even if you know nothing about them, as you said now, it's the chance maybe to just take a picture, send it in, and get the feedback from the forestry side.
Well, yes, we do want people to be involved, and particularly with Dutch elm disease as well, where we are really tackling that head on and still taking the trees down. This is more a monitoring and trying to see how it spreads around the island. But yes, we do want people to be involved. Eventually, I'm sure we'll identify which trees are more resistant, and ash are very good at self-seeding, so I'm hoping that the trees that do survive will self-seed, and we'll eventually get a genre of resistant ash back.
Yeah, and that's what's happened with some of the other types of trees, isn't it? They've brought here on the island. We've brought in the new type of tree that's resistant to the elm disease, isn't it?
Yes, Dutch elm. We bought our first batch of trees in a few months ago, and in fact I had the honour of planting one at DEFRA HQ in St John's. They are resistant, or very resistant, to Dutch elm disease, and I think that is the way we're going to go with a lot of trees where these diseases are prevalent. We'll find resistant strains and they will replace, but obviously it takes a long time to replace mature trees. It doesn't happen overnight.
Geoffrey Boots, the Minister for DEFRA there, talking about more problems with the Isle of Man trees, and it's just one of them things you can't do anything about, is it?
This is it. They try so hard to protect them, and they do a lot of work in the forests and plantations around the Isle of Man, so we just got to keep monitoring, haven't we?
Yeah, and keep your eyes open, and the public can be a big help amongst this.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, I took a trip to Ballackinnig Farm in Smale to catch up with David Brew to find out how things were going on his mixed farm, and particularly a new venture that he's got into.
I decided to have a little bit of an experiment this year. First of all, I actually thought about trying to grow soybeans here on the island, and I did investigate it, and there are varieties now that would grow here. as a direct import substitution for soya that's imported into the island for livestock feed. But the only problem with it that I didn't actually envisage to start with when I first started investigating it was that soya has to be cooked, it has to be micronized to get rid of the toxins in it, the same as kidney beans do for human consumption. So that basically
would mean put them off the island and back.
Yeah, which is a complete non-starter really, and of course there's no facilities here to process them. So the chap that I was talking to, who was advising me on this in the UK, he said, well, the next best alternative to that is blue lupins.
What, you're going to get opening a flower shop or something?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, that's probably what people will think when they hear the word lupins, you know. But lupins are a legume, and they produce seed like peas do and beans do. They all produce flowers, and from those flowers they produce pods and seed. And it's that seed that is valuable as an animal feed because it's high in protein. And lupins they're not quite as high as soya, but they're not far away. I think soya is about 46, lupins are about 40% protein. But the critical thing is with both soya and lupins is that they're high in amino acids, high in lysine, which is a measurement basically of the quality of the protein. Certainly livestock that are looking for high production levels need those amino acids.
So you've got a lot of sheep because you've got a good mixed farm here, and you think that's an important part of the final process, is it, of the sheep?
I would say that all intensive sheep producers in the last maybe 2-3 weeks, when they're feeding the sheep prior to lambing, probably include maybe a small amount of soya to increase the quality of the ration. They may well be using peas and beans prior to that as the main element of protein, but in the last fortnight to 3 weeks they probably will, and I do that. I buy in soya and mix it into the mix in that last few weeks just to boost the birth weight of the lambs and also the milk production.
Well, it sounds as though on paper that it would be an excellent thing instead of importing soya into the island if we can get it here.
Absolutely. I mean, that was my idea. That was, you know, it is hopefully to reduce the amount of imported soya, and maybe if more lupins could be grown here, or even soya itself, that would be a very good thing, because anything that can be grown here as an import substitution has to be a good thing. Because the problem is you can't really grow crops here, to be honest, on the Isle of Man and then export them into the commercial markets away, because the volumes, you have to first of all grow sufficient volumes to bring down as much as you can that export cost, but it's still going to probably mean that growing anything here and exporting it is not going to be viable. And that's the problem of the island's agriculture has got. Full stop, really, is that stretch of sea and the cost of getting any products to the island, and then the cost of getting the products that are produced here that aren't consumed here off the island. In certain circumstances, probably, you know, in the winter where there is agricultural production being exported, maybe on the boat prior to that, there was products, exactly the same products that were being exported, being imported. To me, I mean, it doesn't make very good economic sense that we're exporting production and yet importing such a vast amount of commodity food as well.
Well, we could have it here.
When we could have it here. And it is produced here. And that's
frustrating.
Really... It's frustrating, and it's probably the I don't know, the biggest obstacle I think probably that agriculture here on the island has got to overcome is trying to get more of what's produced here consumed here.
David Brew from Smale catching up with me about new ventures he's into, and it's nice that people are looking into something different. And of course the soya pretty hard to grow, but full of protein, the old blue lupin, so he's going to be cultivating that very soon, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with it. And of course one of the good growers of the milling wheat on the island as well, as David up there.
Yeah, the lupins apparently are very good for livestock, so it'd be nice to see the results from it, really.
Yeah, it will be. And you can see some pictures of the blue lupins on the Manx Radio's website as well, under the countryside banner, if you want to see what the field looks when it was in flower. Also, last weekend I took a trip to the annual Sulby Horticultural Society show. I caught up with some of the prize winners on the day, and firstly, the outgoing secretary of the society, Kirsty Martin.
The sunshine has shone on us again, Simon. I did have a bit of a joke on Facebook saying I'd ordered the weather, but really we couldn't have hoped for better. It's absolutely brilliant turnout today.
And what's struck everyone this year as well, I know it's been good in the past, but there's been such a great display of the flowers, the vegetables, and what the youngsters have done as well.
Yes, we are incredibly grateful for the support of all the local nursery groups here in Sulby, the school especially. We've got local residents that come and local businesses, and they've just kind of bought into our community concept, really. Happy to come along, happy to display, and just happy to support a really fabulous event.
What about the standard of flowers and vegetables that you had this year?
Very good. It's been an up and down growing year, really. So we were a little bit concerned last night when we closed the hall about 10 o'clock last night. It was a little bit sparse, and we were thinking, well, we've got some big people coming in terms of big volume of entries. Maybe they're holding off until Saturday morning, which, bless them, they had, because I was a little bit worried, thinking, oh, they're not going to turn up. Yes, mixed growing year, but you know what? The display we've had here this afternoon, it has been absolutely fantastic.
Sadly, though, for you, I don't know if you're going to keep your involvement in, but it's your last year as secretary, isn't it?
It is. Who told you that? I was trying to keep that quiet.
The Isle of Man.
Only in the north. Yes, I am. I'm stepping down after 7 shows. I'm doing something else next year in my personal life in terms of exams and qualifications, so I am staying on the committee, so I'm not stepping down entirely. So we are looking for a new show secretary. I'm happy to help and show that person how it works, and really it's time. I put a lot of energy and effort into it to start building it up. It's always time to step away, I think. Know when you need to step away and allow somebody else to come in, enthusiastic, energetic, and wanting to take it forward, because what I do isn't necessarily the right way. It seems to work with 1,175 entries. It definitely worked this year, but there's always room for improvement, Simon.
Well, who took away the main prizes this year, Kirsty?
Main prizes went to David Renshaw with a woodpecker wooden carving in a hard handicraft. So he won that section, and he also won Best in Show overall as an adult shower. And our young persons, Best in Show for the young persons, went to the lovely Eleanor Howland again. Eleanor won with a decorated cake last year, and she went away last year after enjoying the show so much and thought, well, what can I do for next year? She created a really brilliant decorated birthday cake. So she again has won Junior Best in Show this year, and I'm really delighted. The amount of work and time that cake must have taken her is, you know, it's really lovely when people do that for us.
Well, Eleanor, let's get a quick word here. Tell us how long did it take you to make that?
It took about a week. I've been doing it in each day throughout the week.
The inspiration for it, of course, it's like a miniature version of how the show is put together, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I was thinking about how to do it, and I thought, like, what people enter into the show, and I thought, well, allotments and the plants, and that gave me kind of the inspiration for it.
Yeah, because a lot of the people who are exhibiting here, of course, grow their vegetables and flowers and things in their allotments. And when I seen the item that you did, it's absolutely brilliant, because you've even went to detail with the miniature show schedule.
Yeah, I thought that would add to it and make it more part of
what the show's all about, isn't it? We're just looking at your exhibit now, this one, and of course the spuds are there with a fork in them as well.
Yeah, I thought that would make it look like they'd just been dug up.
Yeah, well, they certainly do. Is that the backside of a rabbit pointing from the air?
Yeah, I thought it would make it a bit more fun.
Yeah, in amongst the carrots as well, isn't it? Yeah, and the cauliflowers, is it on the far side?
Yeah, and there's lettuces as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful what you've done there. So But well done for this year anyway.
Thank you.
Well, Eddie T, great to speak to you again and see you. Still going strong away from the political world, but took on another just as important role.
Well, I think it's nice to, even though you stood down from politics, to stay part of the community. And I've always been part of the community, been involved one way and another with the Sulby Horticultural Show for more years than I care to remember. But what's nice is here, I can look over my shoulders and you can see where the succession's coming from, where the next generation is. And Kevin and Kirsty Martin have really got a good team around them of the next generation, and they're pushing the show forward in new areas. One of those areas is a strong relationship with Sulby School, and the school support them. They put in entries. That in effect helps the show, but it also encourages the youngsters to take part. So that's our seed corn for the future as well, Simon. So overall, it's a win-win situation.
Like you rightly said before, there's such great support from the youngsters and so many classes that people can get in, and it was great to see the hall packed with enthusiastic people on a beautiful day here, Sulby.
And there's been lots of competition on today as well. There's been quite a few other events in the north of the island and further afield. So I was very pleasantly surprised, both by the number of people here and the number of entries. So we set the hall up on Wednesday night. There's a good team here, got it all pushed into place. Very little to be done on Thursday, and then last night we were here for when the exhibitors started bringing in their exhibits, and then some of the exhibits came in this morning, and then closed the door just after 9 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock the judging started. But what I found particularly fascinating was going around with the judges and getting their insight into why they'd made their decisions, and I learned a terrific amount from that.
You'll have more entries in yourself next year then?
I think they'll have to wait a few more years for that.
Well, what a lovely afternoon it was. The weather was good, the exhibitors had some great produce on show, and of course the children from Sulby School all got involved with their work as well, which was all pinned up on the walls. And what a great hard working lot they are, and this society there, Eddie Tier, the new president of it there, getting involved in it as well, and he's been one of the stalwarts for many years, going, attending and helping out with it. So it's just one of them things that it's nice to see it thriving.
That's right, especially with the encouragement to grow your own produce at home. I think these little horticultural shows and societies will grow again. It's always so well attended. It's very popular, the Sulby one in particular.
Yeah. Do you have a greenhouse?
We have a little polytunnel. And,
do you put tomatoes in that as well?
Yes, but they never really get to the stage where we can eat them all, because Caesar has them before they get to the house, unfortunately.
Oh, well.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
There we are, that was this week's Countryside. From the tree problems on the Isle of Man with the Minister Geoffrey Boot to blue lupins, which I must admit, when I heard about it, I thought, well, I'll be going there, and he's got a little greenhouse with a few flowers in, but not to be, full of protein, which is great, and a lot of research that people like David have been doing to try and get something different, isn't it? Reading up about it and seeing if it'll work here.
That's
not
right.
like the Manx pineapples or anything.
But it's nice to see people embracing the new ideas and technology and reading up, like you say, on the research of these high protein things rather than importing all this expensive meals that are already made in the UK. It's nice to buy local. Yeah,
and of course we heard from Andrew Lees as well about the greatness of promoting the Manx and keeping that label as honest as they can get it, really,
this is
in a
it.
way as well.
He's had a very busy year, hasn't he? And
yeah.
a successful one at that.
And the Sulby Horticultural Society show going strong. And good to hear from Eddie Tier as well, getting involved as president. There we go, a packed countryside for you, which is available all week on the podcasts. And we'll be back next week with more. So from me, Simon Clark.
And me, Kiri Kermode.
We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.